Gold or silver? Silver or gold? We like to stack both of these metals, but how should we think about one of these compared to the other? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about the gold to silver ratio.
I love gold!
Hey, Scrooge McStacker here, and today I want to talk to you about the gold to silver ratio. And there are a couple different ways that we can look at the gold to silver ratio. There are different ratios that we can think about. One of the most common ones that you hear about, though, is the ratio of gold to silver in the earth. So if we were to snap our fingers and mine all the gold and silver in the earth, how much gold would we have versus how much silver? Well, based on current estimates, we're looking at about 19 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. So there's a lot more silver in the earth than there is gold. Of course, some of you may already notice that this ratio doesn't even begin to reflect the prices, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to talk about this ratio in the earth because it comes up over and over again. I've seen a number of YouTube stackers bring it up, and the suggestion here is that because there's about 19 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold in the earth, that the price of silver should only be about 1/19th the price of gold, or that a single ounce of gold should cost about 19 times that of silver. That's the hypothesis or the premise put forward, and I really don't think that's correct. So let me talk about why that is. In reality, as a point of comparison, this is, as of today, this is roughly the price of gold and the price of silver. So you can actually, if you have 1 ounce of gold, a 1 ounce gold coin, if you have, your Scrooge McDuck coin right here, this 1 ounce of gold, I could trade for about 75 ounces of silver. Not 19. In the previous slide, you saw 19. Not 19 ounces of silver, 75 ounces of silver for that 1 ounce of gold. You see that disparity? And that's why some people come on YouTube and they say silver has so much room to grow in price because it's so far away from the natural proportion to gold. I just don't think that that is the way we should think about it. The earth ratio only matters if a couple conditions are more or less true. Okay, the only reason we should care about the earth ratio is if these two things are pretty much true. First, gold and silver need to be used for similar purposes. And why is that? It's because we're dealing with value. Price is all about value. If gold and silver are used for very different purposes, then they're likely to have very different values. If a metal is used in the construction of homes, for example, houses are built every day. They're a necessity of life. But what if one of the metals is used in something like building a yacht? Well, yachts are built, but there are very few of them, and only the wealthiest people buy them. There's not a lot of value in the materials used in yachts. There's a lot of value in the material used in homes. So if gold and silver are both used for the same purpose, then they're comparable. We can start looking at the amount of each that's available. But if they're not used for similar purposes, then we can't really compare. Well, right off the bat, we have a problem, which is they are not used for similar purposes. Silver is a bit more of an industrial metal. It is used in things like solar panels and electric vehicles and things like that. It's popular for the so-called green economy, though it is used in very, very small amounts. There's not a lot of silver used in an electric vehicle or solar panels, but it is used there. It is used for industrial purposes. Gold is used in very small amounts in electronics, but primarily gold is used for jewelry, and it's used as a monetary metal, meaning that actually the primary reason that gold has value is because central banks all over the world hoard it. Not unlike us as stackers, we hoard it for the same reason, as a monetary metal. But those are two very different purposes. Monetary metal and jewelry on the side of gold, and then small industrial uses on the side of silver. These aren't the same uses. They don't derive the same kind of value. So we can't really compare them on that front. The second area is the amount that's used. Again, silver is used in very small amounts for industrial purposes. But gold, being used heavily for jewelry and as a monetary metal, it's used in high volume. It's hoarded in high volume. Therefore, globally, across all the different ways that you might use these metals, gold is probably used in higher volumes, actually, than is silver. There's more of a demand for a volume of gold than a volume of silver, which means we also don't have equal usage. So we're using these metals for different reasons, which derive different value, and we're using them in different proportions, which means, in my opinion, the earth ratio simply doesn't matter. This isn't some fundamental law of the universe. We're dealing with human markets, man-made markets. So man-made derived value is what sets prices, not the availability of the metals in the earth. The only ratio that matters is the market ratio. And right now, that's about 75 ounces of silver per single ounce of gold. Now, why does this ratio matter? Why should we care about this? We should care because that ratio actually changes dramatically over time. Here you look at a chart of the gold to silver ratio from about 2007 to 2021. And it has valleys, it has peaks, it has an overall trend, meaning that you can make certain decisions based on the gold to silver ratio over time. I'll show you what I mean. We all buy gold and silver over time and we stack it, but you can also trade gold for silver and silver for gold. So in these peaks up here where the gold to silver ratio is high, in other words, it takes a lot of silver coins to equal one gold coin. If you were to trade gold for silver at these peaks, and then you were to trade silver back for gold in these trenches, you would actually end up with a lot more value. You see, usually when we stack this physical metal, we're just trying to preserve our value. We want to retain the same purchasing power over time. The price of gold and silver don't go up or down too much very quickly. In fact, the stability of the price is one of the benefits. So over time, you just hope that it kind of gradually goes up to beat or match inflation. But what I'm saying is that even as you stack this physical metal over here, you can trade gold for silver and silver for gold at certain times, and you might come away with massive gains. Let's look at just the last year. Now, we've had a very strange year with this pandemic, but if we go back to 2020, if you had exchanged your gold for silver at this peak and then exchanged that silver back for gold here at the trench, you would have essentially doubled your stack. You would have doubled your money, not just currency. You would have doubled your money. That's a pretty powerful statement. Of course, you have to time this right, as with any kind of speculation. If you expect that something is spiking, then you better hope it comes back down, because if it keeps going up, then, the opportunity isn't really there. But the cool thing about trading these metals is that gold and silver, they aren't going to go to zero, right? So you might temporarily be upside down on your gold to silver ratio if you don't time this correctly. But unlike cryptocurrency, unlike stocks, unlike even some certain real estate, you don't really have to worry about the price of these things going to zero. So the downside is limited. So I haven't traded on this information yet. I haven't tried to really predict the gold to silver ratio changes, but I probably will in the future. I'll probably try to figure out which local coin shops I can come in and essentially trade gold for silver and silver for gold and see if I can play these numbers over time. We might have just passed a dip on gold, although it's unclear. The price of gold and silver might start going down again, and we might see some changes to the gold to silver ratio. But notice that when you look at a chart like this, one thing you can pick out is that there are numbers near the top that are clearly very unusual. And so if you get to a certain height on this chart, it's more likely that you're about to hit a peak in the gold to silver ratio. And similarly, there are numbers near the bottom where if we bottom out on this chart again, those are likely trenches. That the further we get from this kind of middle ground average, the more likely that we are reaching an extreme, and the more likely that trading gold for silver or silver for gold will actually end up with you having more in your stack in the long term, as long as you keep moving back and forth. So that is my thoughts on the gold to silver ratio, both in the earth and in terms of market prices. I hope you learned something here today. If you have any thoughts about the gold to silver ratio, I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this content and you want to see more, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. As always, I'm Scrooge McStacker. Keep on stacking.